Tonight, we're going to continue with symbols, signs, and wonders, but we're calling them Moses miracles because that's what they are basically classified as in all of the commentaries and whatnot. So, to start out with, I thought we would look at what is a miracle, and these are basic definitions, just standard from dictionaries and whatnot. A miracle is an event where God is circumventing the natural order in order to do something extraordinary. An extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. And the last one, of course, any beneficial event that is physically impossible or impossible to confirm by nature. We kind of hold on to that definition today in our world. But so what we're going to do, I picked um, two of the miracles, which most people are familiar with, and we're going to read the scripture, um, and as we read the scripture, though we're focusing kind of on the miracle stuff, um, I want you to notice the people, Moses and the people, and that how they relate to each other. So we will begin with, and this is chapter 16 of Exodus. So we begin with Exodus 16, 1 through 5.
And they journeyed from Elim, and I, the whole congregation of the children of Israel, came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we did eat bread to the full, for you have brought us forth into this wilderness to destroy the whole assembly of Israel with hunger. Then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather sufficient food day by day, for I will prove them whether they will keep my laws or not. And it shall come to pass that on the sixth day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moses and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, at evening, then you shall know that the Lord has brought you out from the land of Egypt. And in the morning, then you shall see the glory of the Lord, for your murmuring has been heard before the Lord. But as for us, what are we that you shall murmur against us? And Moses said, when the Lord shall give you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, then the Lord has heard your murmuring, which you murmured against him. But as for us, what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. And Moses said to Aaron, say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he has heard your murmurings.
Okay. Notice that the people are, they say murmuring, they're always complaining. Um, and let's not forget that though they were slaves in the land of Egypt, they were not they were not really treated like slaves as we know it. They had it pretty good in Egypt because they were off by themselves up in northern Egypt, and they had been there from the time of Joseph, um, who the was kind of the intermediary between the Pharaoh and the and the Hebrews. So they had it very well. And as you read Exodus, and when you will see, though, that's why the people are complaining because they really weren't in a bad state of affairs. And as you can see here, they're complaining that that they're hungry and they are in the desert and there's not a lot of food in the desert. And it came to pass, as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the children of Israel, they turned their faces toward the wilderness. And behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Say to them, at evening you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. And it came to pass that at evening the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay round about the camp. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a thin round crust, like the hoar frost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, Manaho, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, this is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. So we know when it, and it's commonly called manna now, uh, and it's in Aramaic, it means it's manaho, and it means what is it? So they'd never been in the desert. They'd never encountered manna before. So manna, there are so many descriptions of manna. And here, it's like coriander seed, and the taste of it is like honey in the comb. The Hebrews gathered it from day to day. And and the Christianity and the way we look at miracles, we call it a miracle because what they what they believed is that God just gathered up a whole bunch of bread and put it down there and and it was a miracle and it was extraordinary. Well, not exactly, because the the manna was common to the region, to the desert. And it, hold on a minute, I've got some more here. Wait. Um, anyway, the manna is common to the desert, um, where they were located, and still is there today in some regions in the Arabian desert. Dr. Lamsa said that he had eaten it many times. And so, but what we need to understand here is that the miracle, all right, the miracle wasn't something extraordinary and something which was not against, which was not part of God's way of doing or whatnot. The miracle or the wonder is that the Israelites were led into an area where manna was plentiful. And we have this again where the miracle is that Moses was guided. Moses and the Hebrews were guided there to that part of the desert where manna was so that they would not starve. And an interesting thing about the manna, um, the the manna, they had to gather the manna every morning, and if they kept it overnight, it would get worms in it and all that kind of stuff. So so they were told, keep it cold for yourselves in the morning. And this is kind of like the start of refrigeration. It indicates that refrigeration is not a new thing. The Egyptian and other highly civilized nations knew how to preserve meat and other perishable foodstuffs. Meat, milk, and other perishable foods are placed under newly cut grass and are well preserved. Warm water, likewise, when placed in a heap of wheat or freshly cut grass, becomes cold, almost like ice water. These ancient methods of preserving food are still practiced among tribal peoples. So just an interesting look at something that we take for granted with our electronic appliances. They didn't have them, but they were able to preserve their food. Okay, now let's look at the quails. Okay, God said, "Well, I'll provide you with meat," and so the scripture explains the miracle in a convincing and miraculous way that anyone can understand. The wonder or the miracle shows that when the Israelites complained of the lack of meat, the Lord provided them with abundant supplies of quail that flew from the shores of the sea and fell upon the camp. The miracle of the quail is a divine act of God. And here is another twist to this. Yes, they were guided to the right place, but when the people turned to God, providence not only met their needs, but healed their wounds and led them to new pastures and sources of supplies. What is important is not how the quail came, but that hungry people who craved meat were fed. So we have another concept here of turning to God when there is a need, turning to God, and basically nowadays having the faith that God will provide, which we talk about in the Lord's Prayer all the time, and that is just a different concept there that applies also today.
This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man, according to the number of your persons. Each man shall take it for those in his tent. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, some less. And when they measured it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating. And Moses said to them, let no man leave of it till the morning. Notwithstanding, they listened not to Moses, but some of them left it of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them.
Okay, so here we go again. The people were very rebellious, and yes, Moses had a very difficult time with them. But well, I'll just say this, Moses probably didn't have a lot of patience. And here, but here they, it's presented like, well, they didn't pay attention to Moses, and it's kind of like a punishment that the manna turned in, bread worms and whatnot. But that is what happened. And the people just didn't listen to Moses. They went out, didn't matter. They were gonna, they were gonna try it, just like they were rebellious. But the point is, Moses got angry. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. And when the sun grew hot, it melted. And it came to pass that on the sixth day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one person, and all the elders of the congregation came and told Moses. Moses said to them, this is what the Lord has said. Tomorrow is a day of holy rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. Bake that which you will bake today, and cook what you will cook. And that which is left over, keep it cold for yourselves until the morning. So they left over some of it till the morning, as Moses had commanded them, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm on it. And Moses said to them, eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you shall not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. Okay, now this is the start of the all of the rules and the laws that Moses made. And of course, remember what we talked about. Even though it says, and the Lord spoke to Moses, many of the things that Moses did are not things that the Lord actually told him to do. You have to think, remember the belief system that everything was attributed to God, both good and bad. And so when the scribes, the story writers were writing this down, they wrote it down according to that belief. So, but the significance here, it's the start of the idea of the Sabbath, and and the idea that it's actually what we know as Friday came, and they were not to go out to find it on Saturday, because it was the Sabbath and they were to rest, period. Well, go ahead, George.
And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you on the sixth day bread for 2 days. Abide every man in his place. Let no man go out of his house on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. The children of Israel called the name thereof manna, and it was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like honeycomb.
Okay, so here we here we have again. All right, it says that they went out on the Sabbath and they found none. Well, it's kind of yes, maybe no. But when when God said, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws?" Well, the pardon me. Uh, the idea here, okay, it is really more that they didn't listen one more time, and they went out on a Saturday, and so it's not necessarily just whether they had found no manna, but they were not to go out on the Sabbath. If when they went out on the Sabbath, they were not resting. And the Jewish people, even to this day, are very particular about the Sabbath. And you do not do anything on the Sabbath. Even today, the Orthodox Jews in Jerusalem, um, they if you go to Jerusalem, you stay at a Jewish run hotel, you will not get cooked breakfast on Saturday. You will they will cook everything on Friday, and it's like a continental breakfast on Saturday because people rest. And I mean, they do not do anything. Okay. They make the coffee the night before, everything. They do not do anything on the Sabbath. Um, not even, not even a refrigerator. They will turn the bulb off in the refrigerator. Uh, but there's just many things that they don't do. And so this was the start of it. Um, but then, the people rested, learned to rest on the seventh day. But later on, if you read you read in Numbers and Leviticus, Moses established punishments. And the man, I believe it's Leviticus or Numbers, the man there who went out to pick up twigs and stuff was stoned for doing it. So that's how strict they are. And in some ways, of course, nobody is stoned today, but they still keep the Sabbath very strictly. Okay.
And Moses said, this is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Fill an omer to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread with which I have fed you in the wilderness when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, take a pot and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it before the Lord to be kept for your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron laid it up as a testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat manna for 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They did eat manna until they reached the border of the land of Canaan. Now, an omer is 1/10 of an ephah.
And an ephah is a bushel. Okay.
Hmm.
So the quail and the manna, two of the quote miracles attributed to to Moses through God, of course. Wherefore, now we're moving up, we're moving to chapter 17, and this is a different miracle having to do with water. Okay. Wherefore the people quarreled with Moses again and said to him, "Give us water that we may drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you tempt the Lord?" And the people thirsted there for water, and they murmured against Moses and said to him, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?" And Moses prayed to the Lord, saying, "What shall I do with this people?" They were almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go on before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and your staff with which you smote the river, take it in your hand and go." Now, it's pretty interesting to watch the words here. And we get an idea of Moses' personality because here again, he does have a hard time dealing with these people. And, what shall I do with these people? He's talking to God. So, just an interesting scenario on Moses in his personality and relationship to God. And now you will see.
Behold, I will stand before you there on the flinty rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the flinty rock, and there shall gush water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Nasa in Meribah, because of the quarreling of the children of Israel, because they tested the Lord, saying, "Let us see if the Lord is among us or not."
All right, so this is the first instance where Moses strikes the rock and water appears. Now it's seen again as a miracle, because that it doesn't seem like water would you could strike a rock and normally water would come out. However, in Arabia and other arid lands where water was scarce, wells and other sources of water were hidden in order to discourage roaming tribes from encamping, grazing the area, and using the scanty water supplies. Then again, in all parts of the Near East, wells were covered to prevent animals and men from falling into them and to keep the drinking water clean. Large stones were placed upon the mouths of the wells and water sources and were then covered with earth. Therefore, hidden wells were not easy to locate. And so, what we have here again is yes, God's guidance, but God's guidance showed Moses where to strike. And when he struck the rock or uncovered the mouth of the well, he found abundant water to meet the needs of a thirsty people and for the herds and flocks also. So it was common in the desert that those places were there. Moses may not have known the exact place of these wells, but he also knew that they existed because he had grown up in that area and he knew that area. But once again, God led them to that well, and it's not the miracle's not that he struck the rock and the water came out. again, the miracle is that God showed Moses where to go and where to strike. Okay, now we go to Numbers 20 for another look at this idea of water coming out of the rock.
And why have you made us to come up out of Egypt and have brought us to this evil place? It is no place for grain, or for wine, or figs, or pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink. Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they fell upon their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take the rod and gather the assembly together, you and Aaron, your brother, and speak over the rock before their eyes. And it shall give forth its water, and you shall bring forth to them water out of the rock, so that you shall give the congregation and their cattle drink.
Okay, I want to emphasize here that God told Moses, yes, take your rod. But notice God told Moses to speak over the rock before their eyes. Okay, now, and Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock. And he said to them, and again, this is just indicative of Moses' relation with the people. Hear now, you rebels, out of this rock we will bring forth water for you. And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his rod twice. And the water came out abundantly, and the people drank, and all their cattle also. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe in me to sanctify me in the presence of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. Now, we got to look at this. Make sure you understand. All right. Notice that Moses did not speak over the rock. Okay. Moses struck the rock not once, but twice. And so this you shall not bring. This is when people say, why didn't Moses wasn't Moses allowed to enter the promised land? And they fall back to this. You shall not bring this congregation. And why? Well, Moses was angry once again, and he was the people had accused him and Aaron, his son, and were doubtful about the place. Moses was indignant and spoke unadvisedly, and in his anger he smote the rock twice. So that's the answer to that question as to why. Now, I think that I haven't seen any of this in the commentaries, but I think there's more to it, because as you read this, and it's understandable that Moses would be upset with the people because they complained and all that. But, and this is just my opinion now, I think that that may have had to do something else to do with why he wasn't allowed to enter the promised land. Okay, so just an overall summary and point about all this. And the Israelites were constantly finding fault and criticizing their plight and condition. At this time, they were a difficult people to deal with. This is because they were wandering in a treacherous wilderness desert full of difficulties, and their hearts were in Egypt, the land of luxuries and plenty. Whenever the Israelites turned to God, they were guided and well cared for, and everything went smoothly. However, whenever they started complaining and doubting God, they were confronted with unforeseen difficulties. Now, this is significant because that was back in the desert thousands of years ago, but it's the same today. And Moses was commanded to show these people, the Hebrews, the God, the God of Israel, the one God. And that was his command. That was what he was all about. And so uh, so the idea of turning to God and and then falling away applies here today. No, there's no problem, and that is what Jesus taught. Turn to God, and there's no problem. And turning to God, you see, people nowadays, um, many people don't believe they can turn to God because their theology of whatever their religion is says, well, you have to go through Jesus to get to God. You have to, talk to the minister. You have to go to church and whatnot. But remember, once again, that is not what Jesus taught. So this applies even today. And I put this in here because, well, let's see. We're going to go back to the miracle. And this was the one definition of a miracle is an event where God is circumventing the natural order in order to do something extraordinary. Well, no, remember that there is a natural order to everything, and God created it. Okay, so God doesn't go God doesn't go outside of what he created, mainly because he uses the natural order in order to get things done. The natural order was the the quail. The quail would throughout the year, different times. The quail in the desert would um, they would fly inland like that, and God led them to that. So when we think of miracles, from God, it's not just, well, I'm asking God for a miracle, so he will just he will just whatever gather together, and because he is so mighty and powerful, he'll go outside of his realm, the nature, outside of nature, and boom, and do this. And that's just not so. Healing also is part of the order, natural order, and the natural laws. So um, God does not do anything that is not in line with the natural order of things he created. And God guides. And I always say, God guides if you let him. And of course, that is Jesus' teachings, but it is not taught as part of the theology of most Christian religions. All right. And then this one last thing. I I work in a soup kitchen, um, and I have seen this and I have looked at this and just in passing because it's just hanging. And I just thought, I think it will really fit today, but it would fit any day. And it really truly applies. We will never be disillusioned or lose our way if we are guided by God. So we continue here to try to teach that message that turn to God, be guided by God. And it's difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult to teach and it's difficult to learn if you have been entrenched in, you know, a different a different way. Let's just put it that way. But as Jesus said, God is our Father. And when we say our Father, it is everyone's Father. Good, bad, red, uh, black, white, whatever. He's the creator. He created all of us, and they are all our brothers and sisters. And if you go to God like you would go to a father, a parent in this world, um, then you'll be guided as long as you accept the idea. Okay, so um, we are done for tonight. We appreciate contributions. It does cost money to do this. Maybe not a whole lot, but contributions help. Okay, well, I want to thank you all for being here, and we'll be back next week. And I think we're going to talk about the Ten Commandments.